A very good morning. It's Choti Diwali today, also called Narak Chaudas. A very happy Choti Diwali to all of you. Well, I'm Aishwarya Kapoor. Let us begin by taking a look at the top stories that we are following. Manohar Lal Khattar to be the new Chief Minister of Haryana. Government formation process in Maharashtra only after Diwali. Never said will not disclose the names of black money account holders, says Finance Minister Arun Jaitley. Says names will be revealed as charges are filed against them in court. India wins a second consecutive two-year term at the United Nations Human Rights Council after getting the most number of votes in the Asia-Pacific group. Hong Kong's government agrees to consider submitting a report to China on demands and concerns of pro-democracy protesters. No real breakthrough at talks so far. And Paralympic star Oscar Pistorius begins 5-year jail term. Sources suggest he might be sent to house arrest after just 10 months in jail. Manohar Lal Khattar will be the next Chief Minister of Haryana. Khattar was unanimously elected the leader of the state BJP legislature party yesterday to become the first non-Jat Chief Minister of the state in 18 years. Here is more.
60-year-old Manohar Lal Khattar is the unanimous choice of the 47 newly elected BJP MLAs of Haryana. The election paved the way for his becoming the first Chief Minister of the Saffron Party in the state. An old hand of the BJP and long-time RSS Pracharak, Khattar is also the first Punjabi to ascend the throne in Haryana.
आज हमारे विधायक दल की बैठक हुई। सर्वसम्मति से विधायक दल ने मेरे ऊपर भरोसा किया और मुझे विधायक दल का नेता चुना है और निश्चित रूप से हम हरियाणा को एक अच्छी एक सुशासन देने वाली सरकार देंगे जो पारदर्शी होगी और भ्रष्टाचार जो इस समय तक व्याप्त है उसको हम खत्म करेंगे और हरियाणा में एक विकास करने वाली एक सरकार हमारी होगी।
Manohar Lal Khattar won the election from Karnal with a margin of over 63,000 votes. He is stated to be close to Prime Minister Narendra Modi and BJP President Amit Shah. The new government will be sworn in on the 26th of October. Khattar's name was proposed by Haryana BJP President Ram Bilal Sharma and seconded by its Ambala Cant MLA Anil Vij. Khattar later met Haryana Governor Kaptan Singh Solanki and staked claim to form the new government. With Khattar at the helm, Haryana will get a non-Jat Chief Minister after 18 years. Bhajan Lal was the last non-Jat Chief Minister. He held office from 1991 to 1996. After his exit, Bansi Lal, Om Prakash Chautala and Bhupender Singh Hooda were the Chief Ministers. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And on to Maharashtra, the BJP has put off its decision on the new government till post-Diwali. Now, the delaying moves made by the party on Tuesday triggered all kinds of speculation about various political possibilities really facing the state.
The BJP on Tuesday seemed all set to elect its legislative party leader in Maharashtra till Home Minister Rajnath Singh announced a sudden change of plans.
दिवाली से पहले क्या सीएम बन जाएंगे महाराष्ट्र के?
आज नहीं जा रहा हूं और मुझे लगता है कि शायद दीपावली के बाद जाना पड़ेगा.
Once again, the BJP seemed to be telling its strange partner, the Shiv Sena, that it is in no hurry to form a government in the state. Observers say that the obvious delay indicated that the BJP was open to forming a minority government with outside support from the NCP.
I think if I was advisor to Shiv Sena, I would suggest to them that keep yourself in opposition. You need not topple the government. The moment you join the BJP government, you are going to not have secondary role but tertiary role. Because they are not going to give you either deputy chief ministership, revenue, finance, home, industry. So what will you do?
Another possibility, of course, is that in the days leading up to Diwali, the BJP could hold informal talks with the Shiv Sena and finalize a power-sharing formula.
It will take some time. After all, BJP has emerged as a single largest party. Now both parties, among Shiv Sena and NCP, there is a competition who will support BJP. How that competition is going to be over, we will have to wait and see in a few days they may sort out their problems.
A third possibility also did the rounds, that of the Congress and the NCP combining to support the Shiv Sena from the outside, but the Congress was quick to deny it.
So I would like to make it clear that Congress party will never support Shiv Sena to form a government. Anyone who is saying so is absolutely lie and preposterous, and Congress very strongly denies any such thing. Secondly, there are many such parties who can't remain without power, who have never been without power. They may be saying something, but it is for them to decide.
The BJP, however, said that the process to name the Chief Minister of Maharashtra is well underway.
Bharatiya Janata Party has stated that soon it would be a government of Bharatiya Janata Party and we'll have a Chief Minister. Observers have been appointed by the parliamentary board of the party. They would be going to Maharashtra, would be selecting the leader of the Vidhayak Mandal, and thereafter the finer details as to how the government would be formed would be worked out.
Meanwhile, state BJP MLAs have all gone back to their constituencies to celebrate their victories. The party is hopeful that in the next 3 days, it will be in a position to take a final decision about its stint in Mantralaya.
People of Maharashtra may have to wait for few more days to see their government formation. The single largest party, BJP, is exploring all its options, including forming a minority government as it was there in Haryana. With camera person Jitendra from Mumbai, Rajkamal Rao, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, even as the BJP plays a hardball with the Shiv Sena over government formation in Maharashtra, Sena functionaries have started trickling in to Delhi for talks. Subhash Desai and Anil Desai were in New Delhi on Tuesday to hold talks with Home Minister Rajnath Singh and BJP leader JP Nadda on the issue of support to a BJP-led government. Now, Sena President Uddhav Thackeray is also now himself expected to step in. Thackeray is likely to be in the capital for informal talks any time today or tomorrow. All right, my colleague Rajkamal is now joining us live from Mumbai for more on that story. Rajkamal, you are closely following all the developments in Maharashtra there. Now, after days of saying let's talk, but largely staying clear of each other, BJP and Shiv Sena are now officially have started negotiating for a government formation in Maharashtra. What are the updates?
Aishwarya, it was expected because they cannot talk to each other directly because the campaign was harsh-minded, and every party, including BJP and Shiv Sena, they threw war of words at each other. So it's very difficult for them to sit on table immediately after the election results are announced. So that is why they have given a room for a backroom talks and back-channel communication. So that is what seems to be happening. The postponement of Rajnath and JP Nadda's visit to Mumbai is itself an indication that they do not want to communicate directly to Shiv Sena because as of now, as of the results stand by, BJP is in a position to have its command. Shiv Sena can bargain for that, but even without the support of Shiv Sena, BJP can go ahead and form the government. Even if the governor asks to prove the majority in assembly, NCP may back out and BJP will be the single largest party. It's not difficult for them. The major task for BJP is to elect their legislative party leader, who or she who may be the chief minister aspirant, and he can go to governor for government formation. So that is the only delay. Even if BJP doesn't get any support from Shiv Sena, they are well ahead of forming the government.
Right, Rajkamal. Well, thanks so much for all those details. We'll keep coming back to you throughout the day for more on that story. Meanwhile, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley says that the government has never said that it will not reveal the names of Indians who have undeclared income parked in the foreign bank accounts. Jaitley said that double taxation avoidance treaties prohibit the disclosure of names till the charges are framed. In an interview to a private TV news channel, Jaitley said, and I quote him now, the Congress will be embarrassed by the names when we reveal them in court. Once we inform the court, the names will automatically come out in public. The media and Congress got the story all wrong. It is the Congress who needs to be worried and not the BJP, quote unquote. Last week, the opposition Congress exercised I told you so gloating when the government told the Supreme Court that it cannot yet publicly disclose a list handed over by Germany in 2009 of Indians with accounts in the tax haven of Liechtenstein. Now, Mr. Jaitley stressed that the tax treaties had compel confidentiality really at this stage of investigation was signed by the Congress government in the year 1995. the BJP celebrates the state assembly elections win, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be spending his Diwali in Jammu and Kashmir with the flood-affected people. While announcing his plans to spend the occasion in Srinagar, Modi tweeted that he will be in there to lend support to our sisters and brothers affected by the unfortunate incident. The scheduled trip has set off a political debate with some questioning the timing of the visit, coming as it does with Election Commission expected to announce the poll dates for the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly. Chief Minister Omar Abdullah and the opposition PDP welcomed the visit. The separatists termed it a cultural aggression. Now, Modi has already announced 1,000 crore rupees for rehabilitation of the state and promised to do more. The centre is also working out the modalities for Modi to announce one more relief package for the flood-hit state. The visit is likely to be only for a few hours on Thursday. And in other news, India has been re-elected to the United Nations Human Rights Council, or the UNHRC, for the term 2015-17. India came out on top of the Asia-Pacific group, in which 4 seats were up for election. India secured the highest number of votes, that is 162. Bangladesh, Qatar and Indonesia were the other 3 who made it to the UNHRC. India's first term was due to end, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed joy on India's re-election. India's ambassador to the United Nations has said that the country's focus will be to make the UN human rights system more effective and address issues through a constructive approach. Well, we'll step into a very short break here. Still to come, the Securities Appellate Tribunal to hear DLF's appeal against his suspension today. That and much more on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back after the break. On to some international news now. And Hong Kong's government is considering submitting a report to China relaying the demands and concerns of the pro-democracy protesters who have blocked roads and clashed with police for almost a month. Now, this comes after the first talks yesterday between the government and protesters. But beyond this step, both sides remain poles apart. Here is more.
All eyes in Hong Kong are on this building, the Academy of Medicine. Inside here, students and government officials will be sitting across a table and hoping to find a solution to the unrest of the last few weeks. The protesters are led by Alex Chow, one of the key student leaders. The government side is represented by Chief Secretary Carrie Lam. The talks are also being broadcast live, something that the students feel will bolster their case. And just hours ahead of the talks, Hong Kong's leader, Leung Chun-ying, said that the panel chosen to pick candidates for the 2017 election could be made, quote-unquote, more democratic. That's the first indication of a possible compromise.
我相信市民大眾係歡迎政府能夠同學聯代表以至日後希望能夠同其他方面嘅人士就政改問題係展開對話嘅。大家亦都知道一次嘅對話未必能夠解決晒所有嘅問題。
But the chief executive's optimism doesn't find resonance on the streets. Not too many feel anything substantial is going to emerge from these talks.
双方面的那个的底线的要求的差距都是非常非常远。不管怎么样，有对话总是比没有对话好。
这个占中示威的发展啊，很多时候我相信这个学联呢，他们也觉得很多的示威区的情况已经超出他们能够控制的范围。
The talks in Hong Kong coincide with the 4th plenum of the Communist Party of China, which is happening in Beijing. The party can ill afford to be seen to be making concessions to the protesters at a time like this. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
All right, let's get a perspective on that story. We are joined in by Suhasini Heder, diplomatic editor of The Hindu, with us. Hey, Suhasini, thank you so much for joining us here today morning.
Well, good morning and a happy Diwali to some of our viewers at least.
Yeah, and a happy Diwali to everybody else who's also who are celebrating happy Choti Diwali today. Suhasini, talking about Hong Kong, well, the first round of talks between the pro-democracy protesters and the Hong Kong government officials really happened yesterday, which were obviously broadcast live. How do you look at the talks really that happened?
Well, I think everything you're seeing in this Occupy Central movement is unprecedented for Hong Kong and certainly for China. And those pictures you saw of those 5 young protesters in their T-shirts that said freedom now, ranged against bureaucrats in Hong Kong is certainly a stark contrast. And I think for all those hundreds and thousands who are sitting in Hong Kong, blocking up their arterial roads, it certainly was interesting, but they clearly sound disappointed by the results. Now, the Hong Kong government is making it clear this is not the only round of talks, that there will be more. And they are making specific concessions to the student leaders. The question is really, will that be enough? And how much persistence these students are going to have? How long can they stay? Can the government just wait them out? Because remember, the 2017 elections are still 3 years away. So the issue will remain. Will the protest remain is the question.
Obviously. And what do you think about the stand really taken by the government? Because the government initially was really hesitant to at least even sit and talk. But now at least they're sitting across the table and it is actually talking with the students. So how do you look at the entire response of the government in this case?
Well, let's begin with the first spark, if you like, that really brought people out on the streets was the mishandling, if you like, of the protest by the Hong Kong authorities. On September 27th, we saw the arrest of a very young activist who's become world famous now, Joshua, as well as the tear gas, some 87 rounds of tear gas fired on those protesters. That set off another chain. But since then, we've seen real restraint from Hong Kong police. You can see them in those pictures. They're no longer using any kind of force. They've, in fact, vacated parts of the downtown, allowing protesters to sit in there every day. I think there are some parallels to other Occupy movements. There are some parallels to the Delhi, the origins of the Aam Aadmi movement that we saw in Jantar Mantar in Delhi, those protests as well. The difference really is that Hong Kong is not Delhi. These are not areas that they can easily give up for weeks on end. Hong Kong is a commercial hub. Sooner or later, these protesters are also going to come up against public apathy. And I think that's what the government is counting on, that if they show some amount of looking reasonable, that the sympathy for these young students, which is quite high right now in Hong Kong, will actually be on the wane.
Yes, and a very significant point that the chief executive of Hong Kong made there, and he said he said that if we actually concede to their demands, he said that the Hong Kong would turn into a welfare state. Now, what do you really make out of that statement?
Well, the Hong Kong government says he was misquoted and lost in translation, but that New York Times interview seemed to suggest that he was making what is an extremely elitist remark, saying essentially that if you were to allow just a popular democracy as you see everywhere else, then the maximum number of voters would be under 1,800 Hong Kong dollars. Their income would be under 1,800 Hong Kong dollars, and that would lead to populist policies. Now, that's particularly funny given the China context and the fact that they are all members of the Communist Party. And I think he's caused a lot of unhappiness with those remarks. However, Lun Ying is not yet ready to step down. He's certainly not ceding any of his authority. And you saw that other statement he made just now, where he has hinted that it is possible to discuss a more democratic framework before the 2017 elections.
Absolutely.
And that perhaps is the key to the next round of talks.
Probably that will give us some sort of hope really to the students who are protesting. Thank you so much, Suhasini, for joining us here and sharing your perspective on the entire issue. And well, moving on now, South African Paralympic star Oscar Pistorius has begun serving time in jail for killing his girlfriend Reeva Steenkamp. Now, shortly after his sentencing, the athlete was driven to the prison in Pretoria, where he is expected to be housed in the hospital wing. Now, Pistorius will spend 10 months in prison before being placed under house arrest for the remainder of his sentence. The prosecutors had called for a minimum 10-year term for Pistorius, while the defense had argued for community service and house arrest. And let us now take a look at the other international news and updates in our special segment, World Wrap. The death toll in the Nepal trekking disaster is now up to 43. Rescuers pulled out 3 bodies of Nepali citizens killed in last week's freak blizzards and avalanches. The blizzard struck the Annapurna circuit, a trail popular among the Western hikers. Officials said that 518 people, including 304 foreign trekkers, were rescued in the operation by the army and civilian helicopters. The World Health Organization says a treatment using serum made from the blood of recovered Ebola patients could be available within weeks in Liberia, one of the worst countries, countries worst hit by the virus. The Ebola outbreak has already killed more than 4,500 people. Most of the deaths have been in Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone. The US Defense Department has said it is examining an Islamic State video appearing to show militants in control of US weapons intended for Syrian Kurdish fighters. Some 27 bundles containing small arms ammunition and other weaponry were dropped on Monday for militias defending the town of Kobani from Islamic State militants. And let's take a look at some news updates from around the country in our special segment. The ordinance to auction coal blocks for private companies on Tuesday got the nod from President Pranab Mukherjee. The ordinance will enable commercial mining by private companies in future without denting the operations of Coal India. The ordinance comes in the backdrop of the Supreme Court's order quashing the allocation of 214 coal blocks to companies since 1993. Many people were injured when a massive fire broke at Faridabad, the Shera ground on Tuesday. Over 200 shops were destroyed. Over 20 fire tenders were rushed to the spot to bring the fire under control. According to the reports, the fire engulfed the entire market, causing damage to goods and property. However, no casualties were reported. The Election Commission has proposed making paid news an electoral offence to provide a strong deterrent in a bid to stamp out the menace. Chief Election Commissioner V.S. Sampath said that if paid news is made an electoral offence, then it will serve as a deterrent on those violating the law. Let us now take a look at some of the major events and meetings that are scheduled for today in our special section, The Day Ahead. The Securities Appellate Tribunal will today hear real estate giant DLF's appeal against the SEBI order that banned the company and 6 top executives from accessing capital market for 3 years. The order has been passed by SEBI for active and deliberate suppression of material information at the time of its IPO over 7 years ago. With India sticking to its stand on the WTO trade facilitation agreement, discussions will continue today in the General Council of the World Trade Organization to try and break the impasse. There was little headway in discussions yesterday. The BJP continues its Swachh Bharat campaign in hood affected areas of Visakhapatnam and surrounding areas today. A clean and drive program started on beaches in Visakhapatnam yesterday. Several political bigwigs from the state unit of the party took part. Let us now take a look at how the global stock markets are doing. US stocks close higher on Tuesday on upbeat earnings from Apple and a report that the European Central Bank was looking at buying corporate bonds. Well, the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose by 215.14 points or 1.31% to close the day at 16,614. The Standard & Poor's 500 gained 37.27 points or 1.96% to end its business at 1,941. The Nasdaq Composite added 103.4 points or 2.4% to finish the day at 4.419. Gold prices rose by 75 rupees or 0.35% to conclude at 27,315 rupees per 10 grams as the speculators created fresh positions on increased demand from jewelry stockists and retailers ahead of the festive and wedding season. Now, silver also rose by 375 rupees or 0.56% to finish at 39,645 rupees per kilogram due to renewed demand from stockists and retailers amid bullish overseas sentiments. Asian stocks are up amid speculation that Europe's central bank would add stimulus and as Apple records holiday sales forecast buoyed optimism. Japan's Nikkei is up 1.67% or 247.71 points. Now, Hong Kong's Hang Seng is up by 0.08% or 18.32 points to 23,088 as the trading began. And finally, it is the height of the festive season across India. Hectic preparations for Choti Diwali today and Diwali tomorrow. Well, we'll leave you with some visuals of the Diwali preparations and a very special candle making unit run by women in Agartala in Tripura. Have a great day.